Imagine you had just quit the stable full-time job that you'd been working in for the last few years to focus on finishing a university degree, to then also drop out of that university degree not even 2 weeks later. What would you expect your next decision to be? If you guessed impulse buying the cheapest lathe that you could find on Facebook Marketplace, then you're correct. And that's exactly what I did after quitting my job and dropping out of university. You see, while spending the last few years of my life working behind a desk and studying a degree in IT, I realised that what I truly yearned for was a craft that you can hold the tangible results of in your own two hands, not stored somewhere on a cloud, not subject to stakeholder approval, but something real. So in the brief window of time I have before I bend the knee to another employer, I decided to satisfy my craving for creation and treat myself to a cheap, chipped, and admittedly crusty lathe. As you can imagine, due to my sudden reduction in income, my budget was rather limited. This meant finding the cheapest option I can afford and jumping right in. The lathe was light enough that it only required myself to move, a detrimental boon to which the cheap price hinted at. As mass requires money, it comes with the reduction of vibrations and the addition of creature comforts such as variable speed controls. But for now, I'm happy to get to work with what I have available to me. My first task was the cleaning up of the lathe, as it had sat in the previous owner's shed for who knows how many years, accumulating a layer of dust and dirt that I wanted to remove before putting it in its home. Disassembling the tool rest and tailstock was a simple task that boiled down to undoing a couple of bolts. With the tool rest and tailstock removed, it made wiping down the lathe quick and easy. As you'll see later on in the video, I used rust remover to clean up some tools. However, at this point, I had yet to purchase this and had decided to clean up the rusty tool rest and tailstock by hand. If I were to do this again, I certainly would have just dropped these parts into rust remover to save myself what ended up being a good hour or so of scrubbing. With the tool rests and tailstock cleaned up, it was time to reassemble them on the lathe. Luckily, the previous owner of the lathe had it set up on what he said was the base of an old barbecue. The previous life of the base being inconsequential, as the fact that it had wheels was all I really cared about, making moving the lathe around my shed infinitely easier than if there were no wheels involved at all. Having amassed a small collection of mismatched tools, I thought it would be best to start their new life off by giving them a good clean. This involved removing the handle of each tool, which was simple enough. Just tap on the top of the handle and the metal tool bit should slide out with relative ease. I soon came to learn that the handle of the first tool I had decided to work on would not give up its hold without a bit of a fight. Admittedly, having a vise to hold it in would likely have made this process much easier, but with no vise available to me, I had to push on with only my two hands providing both the hold and the concussive force. After I had finally removed the handle, I had to remind myself that tools aren't sentient and are not capable of mischievous malice, and I managed to move on with no hard feelings. Although, my effort immediately being made a mockery of by the next tool I picked up made that a little challenging. Before placing the tools in a bath of rust remover, I gave each of them a wipe over with some mineral turpentine in an attempt to remove any grime that may inhibit the efficacy of the rust remover. After a couple of hours of sitting, it was time to take the tools out. With the exception of that troublesome gouge that needed some more time to think about its actions. As it turns out, I actually had been harbouring hard feelings, and there may have been some rust that still needed dealing with. Being my first time using this rust remover, I wanted to give it a proper test, as the lathe tools didn't have all that much rust on them. To do this, I grabbed two rusty old pairs of secateurs that I'd found at a garage sale. Given the state that these were in, the rust remover would certainly be given a run for its money. To steer this video back onto its intended course, I now needed to get the tools back into their handles. After I had completed this by awkwardly holding onto the metal tool bit and wailing on the wooden handle with a hammer, I learned that this can also be achieved by lightly pushing the tool bit into the wooden handle and then holding onto the handle itself while striking the base, which may seem counterintuitive but works excellently and is a sight more elegant than my previously uneducated efforts you see before you. Now that the lathe and tools had been cleaned up and were ready to go, it was finally time to test out whether I would find a fluttering moment of fulfillment by making something physical, or if I had just wasted hundreds of dollars and the last 16 minutes of your time. I had decided to try and turn a small carver's mallet using Tuna ciliata or Australian red cedar, which, unlike the Western red cedar or Thuja plicata found in the North Americas, is actually a hardwood, a fact that's certainly not confusing when trying to find out information about it online. After donning my apron, face shield and dust mask, I was ready to get turning. Considering the last time I had used the lathe was during my high school woodworking classes over 10 years ago, I was understandably a little nervous starting out. But that nervousness quickly left once I got started and the wood chips were flying. In an attempt to make it seem like I had a plan and wasn't just winging this whole thing, I placed some guidelines on where I thought the head of the mallet and the handle would be. After roughing out the shape of the mallet, I was ecstatic. I was doing it, creating something tangible, and I was seeing it come into shape by my own two hands. With an excitement equal to what I'm sure the Wright brothers would have felt seeing their first plane achieve sustained flight, I eagerly grabbed a new tool to try out, my skew chisel. But unfortunately for me, as we all know, what goes up must come down, and I was about to experience what is the bane of woodturners, the globe round. After assessing the damage done to the mallet, and in my pants, I got straight back into it, as the only path to improvement is practice. And as catches go, this one wasn't all too terrible. Once I was happy with the mallet's shape, I strategically placed some small grooves on an aesthetic assumption they would provide a veneer of competence to the finished product. Once this was done, all that remained was sanding and applying a finish. For those of you who have ever sanded wood before, you would know that sanding opposite to the grain leaves obvious sanding lines. So while sanding the piece like this on the lathe is quick, it's important that it's also sanded along the grain to provide a smooth finish that's free of visible sanding lines. I won't show it all here, but you can rest assured that I sanded the entire mallet in this fashion. If you want to know the reason as to why I'm finishing the mallet with a product labelled Kitchen Timber Wax, The answer is simple, and that's because it was all I had available at the time. And rather than make a late night trip to Bunnings, I decided that the kitchen timber wax would do just fine. And just like that, we've arrived at the finished piece. To answer the title of this video, the joyous excitement that I felt after finishing the mallet was undeniable. And while absolute fulfillment may be something of a fairy tale that we tell ourselves is out there, learning a new skill and creating something physical that can't be taken away with the click of a button is a powerful and fulfilling experience that I cannot recommend enough to anyone else out there looking for something more than the slopscape of modern society. For those of you that have been patiently waiting, or just skipped to the end of the video, to see the results of the rust remover on the secateurs, here you go. If you made it all the way through the video, thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed it, chuck the video a like and leave a comment to let me know what you enjoyed. And consider subscribing so I know that you want to see more. Thanks again for watching, and I'll catch you next time on Beanwig Tinkering.